the spice of our station. Relax. Radio.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, got me thinking. You want to stand out. Why do you want to stand out though so much, especially with these kind of shirts when you're writing? There must be a purpose behind it, right?
Well, when you say a purpose, Nick, what I do, I wear the shirts mainly one because they're nice and bright, so they make me visible, especially if I'm riding on the road.
Okay. I mean, yeah, that's very important, right? Because you want cars, yeah.
Very important. And also, like, people see me in like calves, and perhaps I shouldn't be saying this on here, I suppose, but in the bar afterwards.
All right.
And it gives them something to look at, and it makes them laugh. It makes them laugh. So that's why I do it.
Oh, and it could be a really good pickup line as well. Ladies who ask, "Hey, excuse me, so why are you wearing something so colorful?" I mean, hey, you can always have something up on your sleeve. I mean, you look like a guy who would do.
You know me too well. You know me too well, Nick.
Roundup with Sala, and I'm extremely sorry about all the technical problems that we've been facing throughout today, right? And I hope that everyone can finally hear what I'm saying clearly, and do talk to us, do keep us informed. And we really appreciate you being here and telling us and making sure that we know what is happening, right? At the same time, you can engage in conversations with us. Talk to us about how your day was. Tell us what you think about the topics that we are talking about as well, right? And tell us if there's anything that you'd love to hear about. We offer many topics, many discussions at Relax Radio 24/7 with you. You can add us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. You can download our app as well, and do engage with us, and do talk to us, and do keep commenting as well. With that being said, we've been talking about Ted Bundy, a serial killer in the US, based in the US, who somehow managed to convince everyone around him that he definitely wasn't a serial killer, right? Now, we spoke about how he was suspected, and people did identify him as an attractive man who somehow managed to convince people that, he wasn't someone who was a serial killer, right? And now this isn't the case just with the people he trusts, right? Because the people they turned to when they needed to get the information as to who he was were his ex-girlfriend, his professor, a co-worker, and they definitely were on his side because, well, they knew him, right? And they knew him in the sense of, oh, we're close to someone, and definitely someone we're close to is not someone we would suspect to be a serial killer. But this was the case even with the general public. When his case was being heard in the courts, right? We had women around the US attending this and watching, and all they had to say is, well, he's too attractive to be a serial killer, right? And this definitely was something that it's just unbelievable to think that, that was the case. And that's the reason people were convinced that Ted Bundy was definitely not a serial killer, right? Now, if you are really interested in knowing about Ted Bundy, you can definitely read up on him. There are many sources out there as well. And you can even watch the movie by Zac Efron, right? Now, I need to talk about the movie because I was finally able to watch Ted Bundy's movie, right? And if you want to watch the movie, it's called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile, right? Now, before watching the movie, I was someone who definitely knew that Ted Bundy was a serial killer, right? I knew that Ted Bundy was a serial killer, and I knew about him. I had read about him and whatnot. But when I was watching the movie, Zac Efron did such an amazing job. And I want to say Zac Efron was so convincing. I was so convinced that somehow Ted Bundy wasn't a serial killer, because when I was watching it, I was like, well, he's too nice to be someone like that. And that was the case with Ted Bundy as well. He was a law student, he was someone with a clean record, and he wasn't someone that anyone would have suspected to be a criminal, right? And this isn't the case just with, people around him, but everyone somehow didn't suspect him, right? This was the case with the women who were manipulated by him as well. This was the case with the police officers who were supposed to somehow handle him, right? It was also the case with the guards who sort of helped him escape prison as well, right? So somehow everyone around him, and also his girlfriend, were manipulated into believing that, ultimately Ted Bundy is a good person. And Zac Efron has done an amazing job with that as well, because until the last minute, until he admitted to the fact that he was a serial killer in the movie, I was trying to tell myself, maybe I missed some sort of information, maybe I missed some sort of information while I was reading. Maybe Ted Bundy isn't a serial killer. Maybe, in the movie they kept it to, sort of, put it out that, maybe he isn't a serial killer, or that, he was wrongly accused of it or something like that, right? And that is exactly how much of a good job Zac Efron had done, right? Even though I knew this, right? And that is also what Ted Bundy somehow managed to do with the people around him as well, right? Now, with Ted Bundy, if you really look into his story, it is really, really sad as well, because he had tried to be a good person in multiple situations as well, right? With his wife, he talks about, with his girlfriend, he talks about how he was trying to love her, and she also talks about how Ted Bundy had never in any way hurt her or, harmed her in any way, right? But he sort of confesses towards the latter part. He confesses to having attempted to hurt her twice, right? And that was because he, as a serial killer, he was tempted to do it, but because he loved his girlfriend so much, he doesn't do it, right? The first time he is tempted to hit her with a metal rod, which is really scary because both of them didn't have that, it wasn't seen. It wasn't something that both of them were expecting. Like, at least the girlfriend wasn't expecting that, right? And apart from the fact that Ted Bundy had always been sweet to her and, an absolute sweetheart of a boyfriend with her, this is definitely something he was tempted to do because that was his habits, right? That was what he was used to. And the second time, he also talks about how he almost locked her up and left the chimney closed the chimney as well, which means that she would have lost her breath, and that would have been really hard on her as well, right? And regardless, she was able to get out of the house on time to escape this, and she wasn't harmed, right? And later onwards, she keeps asking Ted constantly, look, did you do all of these things? People are saying stuff, is it true, right? Tell me the truth so that I can make peace with it and move on. And she also gets into like toxic habits, and she can't get out of it as well. But Ted Bundy somehow really doesn't make her, somehow convinces her that he isn't that, right? But ultimately, before he confesses to having done all of that later on afterwards, and he tells his wife as well, look, with his girlfriend as well, he tells her that, look, I did do all of these things as well, right? And he somehow is able to come clean with everything that he's done. But by then, well, it's too late. Ultimately, if you have made a mistake, you have to face the consequences of making that mistake, especially when it's a crime, right? So that was the case with Ted Bundy as well, right? And his girlfriend has a daughter. Ted Bundy's daughter is still with us, right? And they always talk about their experience and how much it affected both of them, because it really did affect their lifestyle, because people were harassing them after this, which shouldn't be the case, because they're not in control of what Ted Bundy did ultimately, right? We shouldn't be putting his wife or his daughter through any sort of emotional trauma simply because of something that he did, right? And they're not at blame for what he did as well. In fact, he talks about how he was going to hurt his girlfriend as well, which tells us that she was definitely not in control of what was happening, right? And ultimately, when Ted Bundy gets caught, he is caught by the police, and they find, hair strands from 3 of the victims in his car, and they find all these objects in his car, right? Like torchlights, ropes, and belts, and all these trash bags as well that are found in his car, that kind of indicate that, well, this is not normal behavior, right? This is definitely not normal behavior, and there's something abnormal about it. And that ultimately got them to understand that, well, he is someone who is a serial killer. What he was accused of was definitely true, right? Since he has attempted to escape prison multiple times, and he's also received help with that, right? And even after confessing to have done all of that as well, people were definitely not convinced that Ted Bundy did that, right? And this is definitely the case with multiple serial killers as well, right? Multiple serial killers have shown to be normal people out there who live normal lives, who are definitely not people that anyone would suspect. And that is exactly why they don't get caught with their first murder itself. But because in general, when a person does their first murder, or engages in their first crime, they tend to get nervous because the first time that they've done that, and they know the consequences that they're going to be facing, and that really makes them scared, right? But with Ted Bundy, he was a serial killer, and just like other serial killers, he had to maintain a good social profile so that no one would think that he was definitely a criminal, right? And we also see his lawyer and him call him heartless and evil, because that definitely was the case, even though he was able to sort of love and care for his girlfriend as well, right? Ultimately, Bundy was finally put on the electric chair and executed. Hundreds of people gathered outside the courthouse to celebrate his death. And ultimately, this is definitely something that we should be talking about capital punishment, or death sentence. Is it something that should be conducted? But in different cases, we need to understand that there are different solutions that can be put forth. Now, with Ted Bundy, rehabilitation is definitely not something that could have been possible, right? He's not someone that could have, his situation was not something that could have been fixed with rehabilitation, which is why death sentence was effective with him, right? It was almost as if there was no solution with him, right? And we need to understand that even though death sentence or capital punishment is not something that needs to be encouraged, and rehabilitation should be the alternative with psychological conditions, especially when it is harmful for people around, we need to make sure that we understand and do whatever we need to do to make sure that there is no impact as such, right? With that being said, we are going to go for a small break and be back, and we are going to have a lot of other conversations come up as well, but we also will be talking about Ted Bundy and his situation more on Relax Radio. This is Sala on the Social Roundup.
Climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
They're talking about mental health. Well, if you went out and got some exercise in the fresh air, that would improve your mental health. It will make you feel better.
That's true. That is true. I wholeheartedly agree. But then for some people, it's how do you find the motivation to, especially when it comes to riding a bicycle, to do it again and again and again and again? It's a cycle that you have to be used to. How do you do it? What makes you wake up in the morning and decide, hey, I'm going to pick my bike up today. I'm going to cycle. What makes you want to do that?
What makes me want to do that?
Yeah. What do you like? What could you give listeners, like people listening in right now? What kind of tip could you give them?
Well, the first tip I would give them, if you haven't tried it before, try it. It can open up new horizons. It'll make you fitter. It will definitely make you fitter. Cycling is one of the best forms of aerobic exercise you can do.
It sounds like, I mean, if you think about it, yeah, it sounds like great fun. Because what essentially you're trying to say is also at the same time, when you if you look at it from this perspective, with regards to mental health, especially when you look at it with mental health, this is another way to fight it. I feel like you go outside, you meet more people, you interact with, socially, you will interact with more people, and you're keeping fit, you're making connections, you're breathing in the good and exhaling the bad. I feel like that's a great thing right there.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a better way with words than I have, I'll tell you. But you're quite right. What you say there.
I mean, I've been doing this for quite some time. I mean, hey, you'll get the hang of it.
Yeah, I've been doing it for about 10 minutes now, so yeah.
That I can never really understand people staying in one room the whole day when you can have the world to see. I am a traveler. I travel. I love traveling. Traveling is just one of the things I do. And yeah, on top of my bucket list was, to one time, hopefully when I get there, go to Nepal and climb Mount Everest. That is one of that's in my bucket list. You're laughing, but that is the facts right there. I'd love to do that. That is something I'm looking forward to do, hopefully.
Climb Everest.
Mount Everest. I mean, okay, not the very tip of Mount Everest, maybe the base camp at least.
Base camp, yeah.
At least.
Would you be able to cycle there?
Oh.
Back on the social roundup with Sala, and today we've been having an interesting conversation about the least suspected serial killer, and that is Ted Bundy. And we have access to his information about his stories online. We also have a movie which Zac Efron acts in, and you definitely should watch the movie if you're interested to know more about his story. And in general, serial killers are people that somehow are able to convince people that they're not serial killers, which is something that we've been talking about today as well, right? And we'd love to know what you felt about today's conversation. So feel free to comment and tell us on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Twitch. Engage with us. You can download our app now on Apple and Android as well. And if there is anything that you would love for us to discuss, then well, let us know, and we'd love to have your opinion, have you engaged in this conversation with us as well. And today we were able to have some amazing conversation on Relax Radio right here on the Social Roundup, and we have more content coming up. We have more amazing shows coming up right here, so stay tuned. This is Sala from the Social Roundup with you.